Good evening there, and welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I'm the host of this show. Today I'm going to do a musical interest video, which usually means I'm going to do a top 10 instrumental of some sort. Today it's going to be on my favorite rock bass players of all time, my top 10 favorite. So, anyways, basically what I'll do is go from number 10 down to number 1, and then I'll give you some honorable mentions as well. Bass players, there aren't as many who I have a lot of affliction for. There are some that are good and some that I like quite a bit, but there's not as many as the guitar players. Obviously, usually in some cases there may be as many as twice as many guitar players. But anyways, bass was always something I was interested in, and my favorite band has an excellent bass player, and that is enough to motivate me to do this. So anyways, without further ado, we will do the top 10 favorite bass players for the rock genre for me. You may have your own, that's fine, that's great, but that's what this is all about. These are not the definitive best bass players of all time. I'm not saying that this guy's better than that guy. I'm just talking about my personal favorites. So anyways, we'll start with number 10. Number 10 comes from the band Deep Purple, also played with Rainbow for a while, and that's Roger Glover. Fantastic bass player, also a good musician and a good writer. Number 9 is the infamous bass player from the rock band Thin Lizzy, Phil Lynott, the late great Phil Lynott. Fantastic bass player and vocalist too. So number 8 comes from the legendary prog rock band Pink Floyd. He did vocals with the band and was primarily the bass player and did most of the writing for the band. A fantastic musician. You can say what you want about the not so good breakup of Pink Floyd, but Roger Waters, fantastic bass player. Thank you. Number 7 comes from a Canadian band who was my favorite band originally when I first started out in music. A band I liked quite a bit, and I really loved this guy's voice quite a bit, and his bass tones match his voice perfectly. I love it. And we're talking about Fred C.F. Turner from BTO. Number 6 is a guy who I think doesn't get enough credit for the music that this band put out. He's a great bass player. He can also play the keyboards. He writes a lot of really good music, and in the end I think he was writing a lot of the music for this band, and it's one of the greatest rock bands of all time. And of course we're talking about John Paul Jones of Led Zeppelin, an underrated bass player in my opinion. Number 5, a guy who was much followed by a lot of bass players, and people took his style and everything, and he actually got a lot better as he went along in the years as well. Just some really good individual bass soloing, like fantastic. And we're talking about the Who's John Entwistle, the late great John Entwistle. A guy whose bass tones I love quite a bit, and he can also sing too, which was great, and he wrote a few songs that maybe weren't up to the same caliber as Pete Townsend, but certainly very entertaining. So we're going to move on to number 4 from a band, one of my group of 7, a band whose bass player doesn't get enough credit for the stuff he's done for the band. I think he wrote most of the lyrics and quite a bit of the music for this band. He also is really heavy on the bass and was a very talented bass player in his own right. And we're talking, of course, about Geezer Butler of Black Sabbath. Fantastic bass player. This guy, yeah, fantastic guy. Anyways, so Geezer Butler comes in at number 4. Now my top 3, number 3 and number 4 switch around sometimes, but number 3 for this period of time is going to be Steve Harris of Iron Maiden, the leader of Iron Maiden, the guy who puts the songs together, the guy that puts the albums together. Fantastic bass player, very out front type bass player, great guy. I don't think Iron Maiden would have succeeded in this world without Steve Harris as at the helm there. I really love a lot of the bass tracks he does. He's very prominent. A lot of bass players tend to be a little bit more stand back a bit, but not him. He's right out there in front. Okay, the top two guys have been the top two guys for probably 40 or more years, and they've always been in this order, first and second. They've always been very close. They're always considered two of the best rock bass players of all time. Both have very different styles. One of them likes to use a pick and is very loud and out front. The other one is more of a finger bass player, but really good grooves and really knows how to play that middle ground between bass and guitar. And so we're talking about first, number two, Chris Squire of Yes, the late great Chris Squire. Why are all the bass players gone? Anyways, he was a fantastic musician. That guy could play the bass like very few people. Many consider him the best bass player there's ever been. I'm not going to argue with him about it. Great guy. Some of the stuff he did, especially on the earlier stuff like Fragile and Close to the Edge, and even on the Yes album, were all really, really fantastic bass lines and stuff. Number one for me has been number one almost since the beginning and the first time I heard him. He's a member of my favorite band, does most of the music writing along with the guitar player, sings all of their music, plays some keyboards as well, but he's a fantastic bass player. And we're talking about, of course, Geddy Lee of Rush. Was there ever any doubt who was going to be number one? The guy is just phenomenal. Another master. All three members of that band are fantastic, but Geddy Lee gets my nod as number one for bass. Sorry. So some of my honorable mentions include Mike Rutherford of Genesis, really good bass player in his own right. Maybe a little overshadowed by some of the other bass players I've named. Also, there's some fairly solid musicians in that band as well. Tony Levin, who currently plays with Yes, but has played for Peter Gabriel and some other bands too. He's a really good bass player as well. Chuck Pinazzo, former bass player for Styx, has done some pretty good riffing. I like the Pinazzo brothers. I like Chuck's bass playing quite a bit. And Jack Bruce of Cream, of course. You can't mention bass players without mentioning Jack Bruce, fantastic bass player. And then the last guy I want to honorably mention as a guy who played with Ozzy, played with, I think he played with Whitesnake, he played with a few bands. Just a really good, solid bass player, heavy metal bass player, and we're talking about Rudy Sarzo, a guy who doesn't get enough credit. And you could probably throw Bob Daisley in there too, another really good bass player. Anyways, there you have it. My top 10 bass players, rock bass players, my top 10 favorite rock bass players. And I'll just reiterate them once more. Geddy Lee came at number 1, Chris Squire at number 2, Steve Harris at number 3, Geezer Butler at number 4, John Entwistle at number 5, John Paul Jones at number 6, Fred C.F. Turner at number 7, Roger Waters at number 8, Phil Lynott at number 9, and Roger Glover at number 10. There you have it. So if you have a top 10 bass players, and please leave your list. I'd like to see what it is. Tell me what you like so much about those particular guys. Anyways, there you have it. I'll be doing a couple of look backs probably in the next day or so, and I'll be online to do those. So I hope you liked the video. So if you did, please like it in the bottom, and subscribe if you want me to do more of this kind of content. And from Prog Monster, this is Murph signing off. Have a good day.